Vehi, you got your eye on that? All right, good morning. I'm Franny Brewer, and I'm here from the Big Island Invasive Species Committee. And I want to thank everybody for joining us here for this special part of Rapid Ohi'a Death, our Ohi'a Love Fest for 2020, our virtual Ohi'a Love Fest. And I'm joined today by the Big Island Invasive Species, my coworkers, our field crew that specializes in fighting Rapid Ohi'a Death out in the field. And I want to start by, we're going to show a little video today that kind of gives you a idea of what these guys go through every day in the field. But before we do that, I want to introduce them, and I want to also say thank you and introduce really quickly Kavehi Lopez. Kavehi, say hi to the folks at home because she put this film together today. She's a grad student at TCBES at Hilo, and so she put this film together for us that we're all going to get to really get that behind the scenes look that you wouldn't normally get to see here in all these random crazy places on the Big Island. So I'm going to start today by introducing Bill Buckley, who is our Forest Response Coordinator at BIISC. And Bill, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Rapid Ohi'a Death team?
All right, hey, thanks, Franny. Yeah, appreciate this. We got a sneak peek at the video, and it's really great production by Kavehi. So thanks to Kavehi for that. It's a lot of fun. And it really captures, you know, a lot of what we do here with the Big Island Invasive Species Committee ROD program. So in the video, you're gonna get to see like all the beautiful places we get to go and like some of the cool stuff and, you know, some of the knee-deep, waist-deep bogs that we trudge through in the beautiful native forests and everything like that. But, you know, really what we're looking to do here is, you know, help support Ohi'a in the Rapid Ohi'a Death program and you know, try to support especially the research and the science that's going into this effort and the management and the surveillance. There's, you know, it's a really tricksy program and there's a lot going on, and it's you know, it's an important thing. Not only, you know, Ohi'a is culturally important, you're going to see it's important for ecology and for watershed processes. And so, you know, it's a part of a big collaboration. So you're going to see this little bit that's Big Island Invasive Species Committee's effort at, you know, working with Rapid Ohi'a Death, but it's part of just a small cog in a very big wheel. So we're doing our part. We're trying to do what we can to support this effort. And, you know, these fine folks that you see here today are part of the on the ground effort. We've been working with Rapid Ohi'a Death here at BIISC since late 2015, early 2016. And we've had the great opportunity to work with all sorts of scientists and researchers and land managers from across the state and across the country. And it's our great privilege to do this work. And we really appreciate you tuning in to check us out. So let me introduce the rest of our team here. First, I'll start off with Dustin Swan. He's our early detection technician on the crew. So Dustin, why don't you say hello?
Yeah, good morning, aloha.
We've got our field crew leader, Kristen Hofer. Kristen, say hi to everybody.
Aloha, good morning, everyone.
Over here, we got Nathaniel Friday. Nate, say hi. Say it out loud. Give him an aloha.
Aloha.
Right on. And we have our Kupu member, Isis Mendonça. Isis, say hello.
Hi, everyone. Aloha. Thanks for joining us.
So great. There's our team. We really appreciate your attendance and checking this out, and we'll look forward to some questions from you at the end. Franny?
Wow, I really appreciate you guys taking the morning off, although maybe it's a relief for you with all the rain we had. Take the morning off and be here so we can answer questions. So if you folks, as we're watching the video or just in general, if you have questions about the work that we're doing in the field for Rapid Ohi'a Death, some of it's going to be explained in the video, but afterwards, these guys are all going to stay on to answer questions. So we have the Q&A on your Zoom. If you're on Zoom, we have the Q&A, we have the chat window. You can type questions in. We have people monitoring those. And then we also have the Facebook stream. So you can type comments into Facebook. We have someone monitoring that. So ask your questions as you go. If it pops into your head, feel free to put it into one of those boxes, and we'll be happy to throw that back to this team and put them on the spot. They're usually way out in the field where they don't have a lot of people questioning them. So it's going to be fun. So please as we share this video, which I am about to do, please think about how you want to chat with these guys. Oh, I just lost it. Yes, I did. All right. Here we go. We have our little video for Rod in the Field.
Hi, folks. Welcome to Big Island Invasive Species Committee. Yeehaw!
So part of our role here at BIISC with Rapid Ohi'a Death is monitoring and detecting potential outbreaks in new areas. So a few weeks ago, we flew over this site in a helicopter. We do periodic helicopter surveys island-wide in order to monitor the progression of diseased ohia trees in specific areas, as well as try to identify new outbreaks, potential new outbreaks across the island. This site we flew over a few weeks ago. We spotted a tree that we thought looked suspect from the air and got a point. And so today we're on the ground. We brought a drone with us. We're gonna fly the drone, pinpoint that tree, and then go out and collect a sample.
I'd say the best part of my day is when we get to go into these really nice native forests that are not open for general public access, like in the natural area reserves or parts of the national park or national wildlife refuges, where you really can see these fairly pristine native ecosystems.
So far, I really enjoyed the process of looking for ohia seeds. I find the activity to be really relaxing for me, and I really appreciate the process of observing the trees and following the process that they're going through from flowering to producing seeds. I really enjoy knowing that I'm part of the initiative to help save these trees, and knowing that we're building a seed bank. That feels really good. I really enjoy that.
I've always had an interest in the outdoors and ecology. So from a fairly young age, I was interested in science and doing research. Helping out researchers were several of my internships in high school. So starting from when I in middle school, I did the Inipono no Ka'aina program, getting a taste of ecological research and conservation work. So since then, I've progressed along doing internships along that line, and in college focusing on ecological biology.
So I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up, but I always kind of was drawn to time in the outdoors. I grew up in a family that spent a lot of time hiking and camping, and so when I came to UH Hilo, I found the environmental science program, and it kind of opened my eyes to the possibility of working outdoors. I didn't know that was an option, so it's been really fun to kind of just fall into this job and kind of figure it out along the way. I think the hardest part of this job is just getting to the trees. A lot of times we find these trees on a helicopter survey or with our drone, and so they could be in the middle of a really remote area in a forest. So that means hiking through some really beautiful native forests, but yeah, that can mean hiking long distances through all sorts of conditions. And yeah, so it's a hard part of the job, but it's also one of the coolest parts of the job. We just get to go to all these unique native forests here and spend some time with the ohia trees. I think another hard part of this job is just witnessing Rapid Ohi'a Death. We spend a lot of time working around these trees that have died, and sometimes they're hundreds and hundreds of years old. It's not always easy to witness, to work with these trees that have been around for hundreds of years and have died because of Rapid Ohi'a Death.
Wow, that is just awesome.
Bravo, bravo.
Really well done. I love it. So I know it occurred to me as we were watching this, I was really thinking about how a lot of this footage was taken from the past few months. I mean, some of it's a little older, but with COVID, how that has really changed, you know, a lot of what you guys have had to deal with. You know, I see mask wearing, so kudos on the team for getting out there with your masks. And I don't know, maybe one of you, has that significantly impacted the work that you've been doing in the field?
Yeah, I mean, Franny, it makes it more challenging for sure. You know, we want to make sure that everybody stays safe and healthy. So, you know, instead of having 4 or maybe even 5 people in a vehicle, now we can only have 2. And those 2 people are sitting, you know, in the driver's seat and in the back passenger seat. You hopefully have the windows down and everybody's wearing a mask. So, you know, a big challenge is just getting, you know, everybody out to the field, of course, safely, but also, you know, with limited vehicles in our fleet, you know, we have to kind of, it's a little bit more of a shell game trying to figure out how to get everybody out to the field safely. Once you're out in the field, you know, you're doing these tailgate safety sessions. Again, you know, safety is a big thing with us, or well, it's a big thing with everybody that's out doing this kind of work. So when you're standing around in a big group, you know, you want to make sure that everybody's on the same page safety wise. So when you're talking in a big group, you've got your mask on, and you know it's raining and you're trying to hear everybody, and so it's, you know, there are challenges, but you know, really once you start hiking on a trail, everybody's on the same page again, so you're distancing yourself and you get to take the mask off so you can actually breathe while you're walking through these beautiful steep forested hills and whatnot. So yeah, it's definitely more challenging. What do you guys think? You spend more time out in the field, so what's your reflection on this?
I think the biggest thing is the limitations on how many people we can fit in a vehicle, which requires more figuring out who's going in what vehicle and whether we can get a certain number of vehicles into the field site.
Yeah, because some of these field sites are pretty remote, so it was kind of cool to get that view of Kristen. I really like the one of you waist deep in mud. That seemed kind of exciting. Is that a typical day, or was that luckily only a one-time deal?
No, that's not a typical day. That was a special day. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. The cleanup from that must have been intense. So let's see, we got some questions coming in here. Jade, you got anything coming over from the chat for the team to address?
Yep, I got a few questions for you guys. Let me bring up chat real quick. Do you know if there's like a particular part of the island that Rod comes up the most? And like, why is the reasoning for that?
Well, that's a really good question. I don't know who asked it, but that's a really good question. You know, for Hawaii Island, we have rod on every district, which is unfortunate. We're seeing it in patches. We see it in some patches, but not in some others. You know, there's a lot of really, really great research going into why it's where it is and why it's not where it is. These different factors, you know, it's a relatively new pathogen that's attacking these ohia trees. And, you know, I mean, the scientists are working hard to learn more and more about it and why it's where it is and why it's not where it's not. So, you know, stay tuned for more information on that. I think that there's, you know, most or pretty much everybody would tell you the same thing. We don't know why it's, you know, where it is. You know, it's clear that it affects the tree when the tree has damage to it. So damage can come in a lot of different ways. It can be simply, you know, a windstorm damages the tree, and then the fungus is in the air and it lands on that damage point. There could be other damage from plenty of other things, you know, like say in your yard or something, you prune your tree and there's a damage point because of the pruning. That's an opening for the fungus to attack the tree. So really, unfortunately, there's not a good answer to that, except you know, more research and more information is coming in every day. And, you know, stay tuned for more info on that.
No, I noticed during the video that there was a lot of mentions of certain areas, Dustin, when he was talking about how there's a focus on certain areas, because we know places on the east side of the Big Island are so heavily impacted. But I know there's specific areas that are not heavily impacted, particularly on the west and north sides of the island that we have been focused on. And in fact, one of the questions that came in was about the Honoka'a area, like Ohi'a Loa, and in that area up there. Is that an area where you guys have found rot, or are you looking in that area? What's the situation up there?
Well, the situation up there, so again, it's in certain spots more than it is in others. Okay, sorry, that's pretty vague. But on that North Hamakua coast, that Ohi'a Loa area, we don't see a lot of it. We do see some. Why is it in certain spots at Ohi'a Loa or that North Hamakua? Not too sure about exactly why that is. But some observations. Okay, now there's research with hard evidence and there's observations, right? And so observations, they're not, you don't have the evidence to say we can definitely support this, but we can see with our eyes, we can observe some of these things. And, those really nice intact native forests, especially those higher elevation native intact forests, are not as impacted as some of those lower elevation forests that are not quite as intact, that have more impact, say, from ungulates, or ungulates being, say, cows or sheep or goats or pigs, that kind of thing. That's observational at this point. There's research going into some of these things. But at any rate, places like Ohi'a Loa, the forest is in pretty good shape up there, and we don't see a lot of it. There's been a good bit of outreach to those homeowners and those property owners to keep their ohia, in good, healthy shape, and to reduce damage to them. So hopefully that's paying off.
Whoops. So Jade, was there more questions coming in from the Zoom chat?
Yep, there's a couple.
Okay.
For someone who's living off island, we have somebody watching from Kauai. What are the things they should bring with them hiking to help prevent the spread of rot?
Dustin, you wanna take that?
Sure. So I think one of the most important thing to keep in mind, rot has been detected on Kauai and Big Island, but it's still important to make sure that you decontaminate any gear that you move across the islands. Your hiking boots, camping gear, things like that. And yeah, just following good sanitation procedures, I think, is the most important thing.
And do you think if they're hiking, should they clean their things before they get into the car, or do you think once they, like, if they go straight home, do you think that's okay too, or should they just do it right before they get into the car?
Ideally, you would clean your gear before and after. So before you enter the forest and after you're leaving the forest. Because you don't want to bring anything in and you don't want to take anything out and potentially move it to another location.
So importantly, when you clean your gear, you want to get all that mud off. That the fungus can stay in that mud for probably quite some time. And then, so the fungal spore is this itty bitty little tiny little thing, which can easily be killed by spraying it with rubbing alcohol. So you got a 1-2 punch here. You hit it with, you get all the mud off, all the clumpy, heavy bits off, and then you spray it with a rubbing alcohol. That'll kill the spore, the fungal spore, so then it can't propagate into the tree. Okay, if you have nice leather boots like we do, you spray it off with alcohol, and then you wait for 15 seconds, and then you spray it off with a hose or something like that. That way the alcohol doesn't dry rot the leather.
Okay, awesome, thanks. Do we have any other questions, Jade, or should we move on to the Facebook?
Maybe like 2 more. Sorry, I'm just
go for it.
A few more came in, so I was catching up.
Yeah.
Brandon did touch a little bit about how COVID was affecting you guys, but for a while there was a shortage on alcohol and things like that. Did that affect your guys' work at all? Because I know that's what we use for decon.
Great question. The answer is yes. It is challenging to find alcohol right now. Gratefully, we have these awesome partners with DOFA and with other agencies, and they've actually been very, very helpful. And they had stockpiled a bunch of alcohol like way before COVID was ever even an issue when Rod first came out. So they had a bunch of gallons of alcohol. So every time we walk into Target, we walk by the alcohol aisle and we get whatever we can, which lately has not been very much. But again, gratefully, some of our partners have been helping us out by giving us some alcohol. So yeah, actually it is. It is an issue.
Can I make a quick comment on my observation?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we realized that there's a tendency for the bottles to vanish from the beginning of the trailheads. So there's something that I noticed, and me and Kristen were discussing is how the bottles tend to vanish from. So that's kind of a little bit of a concern, how people tend to gravitate towards the spray bottles. And then also mention, if you have a little spray bottle, you can have in your backpack, and you can use that and have that portable spray. That would be helpful.
These days we all have sanitation equipment in our cars, hopefully, so makes people think about it, I think, a little bit more. Maybe it should make our job a little bit easier. Was there anything else, Jade?
Last one. Do you believe, like, is that, besides of course like the damaging of the bark from wind or pruning, can things like lack of nutrition or lack of water affect if the ohia is susceptible to rot?
Well, you know, the healthier the tree is, the more resilient it's going to be to something like this. You know, I guess I don't really have a great answer for that, except for, yeah, the healthier the tree is, it's going to be more resilient to, you know, fighting off an infection by something like Rapid Ohi'a Death, or ceratocystis, the fungal spore. Anybody else got something to add to that? Because I think that's a sorely lacking.
Well, I think one of the things that seems to be the case from the science that we've seen is that once the fungus gets into the vascular system of the tree, there's not a whole lot, you know, if we're talking about the leuco-ohia, there's not a whole lot that the tree can do to recover. So right now, the main thing is that if the tree can remain undamaged, right? So not having that wounding, I think, is the most important thing, because even very healthy trees, and again, you guys see this more in the field, but I know in my experience, I've seen extremely healthy trees succumb to Rapid Ohi'a Death, and I think that's really related to that wounding that happens either naturally or man-induced, human-induced.
Yeah, that's a great point, Franny. That's a really great point. You know, some of our most epic, pristine, beautiful forests are still getting hit by Rapid Ohi'a Death. All the way down to, you know, street trees that are getting dinged, you know, regularly by passerbys or vehicles or whatever. So it's like this big, you know, the whole spectrum of trees are getting damaged. Now just to kind of like go off a little bit on a tangent, those really healthy forests that have, you know, that intact native forests that are minimally damaged or minimally impacted by invasive species. Well, what we're anticipating, hoping for, gambling on is that those are going to be resilient forests. So in the end, when Rod does finally go through and hopefully, you know, like stops and you know, what we'll find is that those intact and native forests, those ones that are more resilient, are actually going to have seedlings in the understory that can continue to grow to perpetuate the Ohi'a forest. So the more healthy the forest is, hopefully the better off it'll be in the long run.
Great. Kavehi, what's going on over on Facebook? Do we have any comments that the team can address?
We don't have any questions on Facebook, actually. I noticed there's a few in the Q&A though.
Okay, great. Was that who's got the Q&A? Is that Molly or Jade?
Hi. Yes,
Hey,
we have 3 questions in the Q&A. Are there any new or big projects to look forward to in 2021 and beyond?
Dustin, what do you think?
Good question.
Well, we've been talking about how COVID has affected our operations for combating or monitoring the spread of rapid Ohi'a death. And unfortunately, it's probably going to play a role in the upcoming year as well, just due to funding restrictions. So it may impact the amount of new projects that we can take on for 2021. But stay tuned. We're always looking for new and inventive ways to both monitor and manage rapid Ohi'a death across Hawaii Island. So,
Okay.
Are there any other? Oops, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, Dustin, you're absolutely right. We're the projects and new projects that the whole rapid Ohi'a death project can possibly do. And when I say that, it would be like not only BIISC, but we're looking at all the state agencies and the research entities and the whole ball of wax. I mean, everybody's being impacted by COVID, especially financially. But there are some really great projects that are ongoing. There's a lot of entomology research that's really producing some great results that could be very beneficial for the project in a whole. Really great sampling and monitoring efforts through Hilo. There's some really cool drone stuff and helicopter imagery work that's going on. Long-term forest monitoring through the U.S. Forest Service. We've got collaborations with folks on the mainland that are looking at genetic work. So there, while it may not be that we can, really amplify what we're doing because of the COVID budget crisis, the research that's ongoing, these long-term research projects, they are yielding some very interesting, helpful, beneficial results. So yeah, it may not be that we can really, pump up what we're doing, but where we're at right now, we're doing, there's some really interesting, great stuff coming out of it.
yeah, and of course, we're going to continue to support those partnerships through the coming year. So.
Yeah, and I want to point out, JB Friday, no relation to Nate Friday. Or a lot of relation to Nate Friday. So JB Friday, who's one of our partners at CTAR, is in the comments, and he's talking about some future projects. And I think it's important to note that the projects that he's listing, modeling of wind-blowing beetle frass, remote sensing, detecting with using drones with mini chainsaws, a lot of that work is being done by research partners, right? So this is not the only, we're, as Bill said in the beginning, we are one small piece. BIISC has one small piece of this really sprawling rod puzzle. And so there's a lot of projects. The university especially is doing a lot of sort of that frontline, what kind of new technologies or new things can we look at? And of course, we have partners at USDA and CTAR who are working on various projects. USGS is working on the insect project. So there's a lot of folks that are working on these projects. And so what we're talking about today, this is just one piece of it. And there's many, many pieces. And so that's something I think that people should continue to follow the Rapid Ohi'a Death page and follow the social media streams to kind of get updates on some of the things that are going on. I believe probably in March, we will actually be having more of a science symposium where we'll be bringing to the public some of that information. But Molly, is there other questions coming from the Q&A that the team can answer while we have them here and now?
Yes, there is. And it's so great how Rapid Ohi'a Death research is such a big team effort with so many people. Some people are wondering, is there another solution that can be used to clean equipment, like perhaps bleach on boots and car tires?
That's a great question.
Yeah, so there has been some research done on this, bleach versus the 70% alcohol solutions. And they've found, in the research, they found that bleach does work, but it takes longer. It has to stay on the surface for significantly longer than the alcohol. The alcohol will kill the fungus in just a few seconds, where the bleach can take, several minutes or up to an hour to actually kill that fungus. So I think the recommendation is still the 70% alcohol, isopropyl alcohol.
And for some other things, fire can also be used to sterilize. Like if you have machetes, if you pass a propane torch quickly over the edge, that won't work for boots and stuff, but machetes, and we use it for our drill bits when we're doing sampling.
That's a great point. Thank you, Nate, because I think that is something that people forget about is the importance of tools. And I know one of the messages we've tried to really reach out with outreach is for those using things like, or hiring people who are using earth movers or who are pruning trees, to, especially when it comes to Ohi'a, be really sure that that equipment is clean before it comes onto your property and before anybody's using it on your property. So it's something that's not just important for us as teams working out in the field, but it's also really important for homeowners, I think, who are trying to protect the Ohi'a on their property, to be aware of things like tools. Molly?
Are there any products that can seal wounds and cuts on Ohi'a trees? And can people trim their Ohi'a keiki safely?
Okay, who wants to take that?
Yeah, so, when we cut into these Ohi'a trees, we're cutting into, already dead trees. They don't have any green on them, but we do seal the wounds with, it's called a pruning sealer. And so it's a product, a known product. You can get it from any of the hardware stores or probably gardening supply stores. We use one, it comes out of a spray can instead of, they also come in like little paint jar kind of things where you would dip a brush in and paint it on. What we recommend is that you would use, we use the brand Spectracide pruning seal. It comes out like a black tar kind of thing, but it comes out sterile. If you use it out of a paint can and you dip the brush in and then you paint your wound or your pruning wound, you may literally be inoculating the wound with any fungus that could be inside of the can. So if you use a spray can pruning sealer right away, so you trim the branch off that absolutely must be trimmed, and then you hit it with a spray pruning sealer, that can help. There's no guarantees because shoot, you cut the limb, and if there's fungus on the tool that you're using, then you just inoculated the tree and you're going to seal it in with that pruning seal. So like Franny said, be diligent with your tools that you use, keep them really clean. Before you make any cuts into an Ohi'a tree, make sure that tool is clean, especially of the fungus, and then make your cut and then seal the wound with a pruning sealer out of a can.
How about if people have Ohi'a with dead branches? Is it beneficial to trim them, or should they be left on the tree?
Ooh, that's a good question. Anybody want to take that? Okay, yeah. So, are they branches that could potentially be dangerous? Are they over your driveway, and if they fall at the wrong time, could they land on something important? So are they hazardous limbs, perhaps? If it's a big dead limb that could potentially impact some important infrastructure, then yeah, you'd probably be better off cutting that dead limb off. Otherwise, if it's a dead limb out in the forest, that tree is going to slough off that limb when it's ready. So I would assume that, if it's not a danger to yourself or something important, then you would just go ahead and leave that limb on the tree.
Interesting. What research projects do you want to see pursued in the future? What's the most important research question that could be answered?
Ooh.
Why don't we have the team give some answers? I know, Kristen, you've been working on this project for several years now. Being in the field, what kinds of things what kind of questions do you see that you think, boy, I'd really like an answer to this, even if it's an existing project that's going on, but we don't have an answer yet?
That's a tough question. I think all of it is important. I think it's all kind of answering the different questions together. And I think
pursuing all of the research on how it's spreading within the tree, within the forest. Every question is important. So I kind of think, yeah, it's just kind of important to have all of it going. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you have that situation where like you kind of solve one puzzle and it just opens 3 more questions, and it's like, how do these things like interact with each other, right? Nate, what about you? Is there, you have that ecological background as well. Like what are you seeing that you're thinking, gosh, these are questions I'd really like to see answered?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest questions is teasing out exactly how it spread and how it spread through various means, and maybe what the different weights for that are. And that's an important question, and also very hard to tell. But I like seeing some of the work they're doing in teasing out the genetics of this to separate different strains can give us clues as to what patches where on the island might be indicative of being spread by the wind, if it's very similar to somewhere that's along the same wind current. Or one project we just started looking into a few weeks ago was how it perhaps could be carried by the water, and comparing the genetics of rot infections that were within the wash of the river versus outside of. And that could have definite implications for management, because if we find some areas that are very definitely being spread by humans and tools and stuff, that's addressable.
You're muted.
That's a question that came up in the chat, is how is it spread? Because it's on Kauai now, it's pretty well developed over there, and people are saying that, how did it get all the way to Kauai, where it's the most distant island from the Big Island? And we just don't know. We don't know exactly how that happened, and that's one of the big mysteries that scientists are looking at right now. So I mean, the more that we know about how this spreads, I think you're right, the more chance we have of helping people to battle it. And Isis, as the newest member of the ROD team, what have you been seeing or wondering about coming into the Rapid Ohi'a Death world, kind of fresh-eyed? And the rest of us are a little jaded, but having fresh eyes.
Well, in my perception, the work that's being done with the resistance testing by the UH is extremely important. I'm really excited to be part of that initiative, like I shared in the video. I'm really enthusiastic about seed banks. In my perspective, I think that archiving the genetic material, the varieties of Ohi'a, and having them stored properly, so that in a situation of we find resistance, that we have access to ample reservoir of seeds of a particular kind of Ohi'a tree. So I think that the work about resistance is really important. That can help us answer some important questions.
Jumping in
Go ahead, Nate.
for a second here. So, a lot of our focus, or a lot of our concern, being land managers, is how do we manage this thing? And I think you guys all made really great points. I mean, there's so much research going on to all these little bits of the puzzle. To look at it as a management problem. The research that's going on into the management of forests to promote resilience or to help combat against rot is something that's really important to us. So some of those things might include the role of ungulates in spreading the disease. And so the importance of say fencing, and also removing the ungulates out of the fenced units. So there's a lot of fencing that goes into into managing these really important forests. Well, you can fence the forest, but then if you're just fencing in a bunch of ungulates, you're really doing a lot of damage to that forest. So the importance of removing the ungulates to help bolster the integrity of that forest is an important research question that's being looked at. I also want to note there's some really interesting stuff that's coming out just recently that I'd like to see more information on, and that's ambrosia beetles, right? So we know that the ambrosia beetle digs into the tree, it's kicking out it's called frass or boring dust. Those boring dust particles have the fungal spores in them. We know that they're viable fungal spores that can get airborne and then move the disease around, move the fungus around. So how to reduce the production of that frass or that boring dust. And there's some really cool stuff coming out of the U.S. Geologic Survey, regarding the ambrosia beetle and frass production, how to repellent actually that we just heard about that could potentially be helpful with this. So anyway, yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff going on out there. And for us, we like to help out with the research when we can, and especially with things that have management implications. And you're muted, Franny.
Thanks, sorry. I did think we didn't get Dustin's looking forward. What kinds of questions, what kind of research would you like to see answered, or are you excited about? Nope.
Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties today.
No. You're a tech guy. You can't do that.
I know. This is embarrassing. I think the crew and Bill, pretty much touched on the important aspects. I agree with Bill. I think one of the most important questions to be answered from all the research being done is how do we manage this disease on a forest-wide level? I think that's one of the most important questions to try to find an answer for, and even decide if it's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, that is
the scale, the enormity of the scale of managing this disease across, the entire state, not just Hawaii Island either. We've got several other islands in the state that have beautiful, pristine Ohi'a forests that we want to protect and make sure it's there for future generations. So
yeah, we have some folks in the chat stressing the importance of water, and this is our water gathering, right? That's gather, and that's where our watersheds are getting. That's how we get our water. And yeah,
I just want to. I'm so surprised that my 2 drone pilots haven't mentioned the cool drone surveillance work that's out there. My gosh. So yeah, there's drones are really not only cool, fun tool to use, but they are really, really helpful in this. And there's research going on through the UH, not only just to monitor plots, particular rather large acreage pieces of Ohi'a forests that are being impacted by rod, but also there's some really cool stuff that they're, the drone with the chainsaw on the end, that the chainsaw comes and cuts the branch, and then the arm grabs it, and then they swing the whole drone around, and it's got pruning seal on the other end. I mean, this is really cool stuff out of Ryan Peroy's lab at Hilo. So, I'm pretty sure that there's some, younger folks out there, they're going, well, what do we want to get into, like when we go to college or whatever? Well, there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on in this world, and especially in the conservation field. So, be creative, and, it'll pay off in the end.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Like we get to do a lot of fun things with toys in the natural resource world. So for those younger folks thinking about a career path, this is it's one option. And in fact, Isis, let me throw that to you because you're a Kupu intern. So you're with us for a year. What can you tell maybe younger folks who are thinking about, hey, that looks like something I'd want to do. I want to help the Aina and I want to be a part of something like that, about what it takes to be a Kupu intern and what that experience is like.
Thank you, Franny. Yeah, this experience is really rewarding. It takes a level of commitment, a level of passion to preserving this ecosystem. It gives you a renewed sense of purpose to be part of these efforts. For me, it has been, it's been a lot of commuting because I live in Ahualoa. So for me, it's been a bunch of driving, but it's a feeling of connection with the Aina. So it takes it takes commitment and to being involved and interested in continuous education, catching up with all the material that has already been generated with the studies so far. So I would say getting up to speed with the rest of the crew, it has been enough homework for me just to get to, where everyone else is at. I feel like that's really important as a new member, to do my homework, watch all the webinars, and, so yeah, for anyone that's joining the team, yeah, there's some homework to be done to get up to speed, and that's where I'm working at.
That's awesome. It's so good to have you on the team. And I want to kind of
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great. I want to bring in our other ex-Kupu intern. First, can I just get people to raise their hands? Who did an internship before they got into this as a full-time job? I did. So, all right, we got.
I'm raising my hand, but my camera is off.
Jade, Molly, I know you guys as well. So I think, because just getting back to that career portion, because for young folks who might be watching, that this is internships are really important, and these are paid internships, which is awesome. But I want to throw it to Kavehi, because maybe for folks who are interested in this but don't want to be waist deep in muck, if there are other, I know Kavehi has a different job, and she came on as a Kupu intern, but can you talk a little bit, Kavehi, about how, now you're in a master's program for tropical conservation biology. What was your journey like from high school to internship, college? How did that go for you?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I started out, I fell in love with conservation because of this really hands-on 6-week camping conservation experience that I got. But as I got older, I realized that what I really love is working with people. And so I did an internship, and I actually landed an internship with BIISC, where we did a bunch of research, interviewing people, learning about what the best ways are to communicate with the public. And so that's what I really fell in love with. Although I love being out in the forest and I appreciate everything that our field crews do, I kind of felt like I fell into a different sort of niche. And yeah, I think this field has enough room for everyone. People that like to be outdoors, people that like to talk to people. Yeah, you just have
to make videos. People who like to make videos.
Yeah. Photography, I mean, that's really important to our effort,
Well, I so much appreciate the work that you did on this video. And of course, I appreciate your work every day, and all of you on the RAD crew. So I want to, something that came up when you guys were talking about projects, I think, Isis, you brought up the importance of varieties for resistance. And so folks who are interested in the different varieties of Ohi'a, and there are several, it is a very wide range of different types of Ohi'a. We do have a workshop tomorrow on Ohi'a varieties, and that's going to be with JB Friday. So you can go onto the rapidohiadeath.org page and register for that if you haven't already. And we're also going to have seed conservation workshop on Friday, I believe. So that will be something if folks want to learn about the different varieties and they want to learn how to bank Ohi'a seeds and save Ohi'a seeds. We do have that coming up. That's something you can do yourself and that's Thursday and Friday. So please do check out the other events that we have for Ohi'a Love Fest this year. So glad to have everybody on here. Can I just get all the team to unmute themselves and give a mahalo?
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, guys.
Aloha, thank you.
Great.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Aloha.
So this will be up on our Facebook page on Rapid Ohi'a Death and also Big Island Invasive Species Committee. Really appreciate everybody being here today. And if you have any questions, please do continue to send those in. If you have any questions for BIISC, we're at BIISC@hawaii.edu. And then we have the Rapid Ohi'a Death page where you can contact some more of the research folks at CTAR. So I have a lot of great resources available for you. Thanks so much to all for being here today, and have a wonderful day. Aloha.
Thank you. Bye.